Welcome back to Ageless Mind and Body, where we explore the real, raw, and powerful truths about growing older with strength, wisdom, and purpose. If you've ever felt like no one warned you about life after 80, you're not alone. Aging isn't just about what shows up on a lab report. It's about the quieter shifts, how friendships fade, how your body feels less predictable, and how the world around you seems to move just a little faster than you'd like. Today, we're diving into 5 unexpected and often unspoken realities that come with this chapter of life. This isn't about fear, it's about clarity. Because when we name what we're experiencing, we take back a sense of control, dignity, and connection. So whether you're living these changes yourself or walking beside someone who is, this video is for you. Let's talk honestly, reflect deeply, and remind ourselves getting older doesn't mean becoming invisible. It means becoming more real than ever. Let's get started. 1. Shrinking social connections. One of the quietest yet most profound changes many people experience after the age of 80 is the shrinking of their social world. It doesn't usually happen all at once. There's no grand announcement or sudden break. Instead, it unfolds slowly, subtly, almost invisibly, until one day you find yourself spending more hours in silence than you ever imagined you would. The phone rings less. Fewer invitations come in. And when they do, the energy to attend might not always be there. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel like rare gifts rather than daily occurrences. You begin to notice the gaps between visits, between voices, between moments of connection. Often, the shift begins with friends. Some move away to be closer to their children or to receive better care. Others face their own health challenges, making it harder to stay in touch. And some, more than you'd like to admit, are simply no longer here. These are people who knew you in your younger days, who shared your jokes without explanation, who were part of your routine in ways that no one else ever quite could be. Losing those connections feels like losing pieces of yourself. Pieces that once grounded you in shared history and belonging. Meanwhile, family members, though loving, are often swept up in the tide of their own busy lives. Grandchildren grow up, children juggle work, caregiving, and their own responsibilities. Even when they mean well, even when they care deeply, their time becomes more limited. You may see them during holidays or special occasions, but the day-to-day moments, the spontaneous visits, the leisurely chats happen far less often. And even when they're present, there can sometimes be a sense of disconnection, as if the rhythms of your lives no longer quite align. This isn't about bitterness, it's not about blame, it's about honesty. Aging brings with it a new kind of solitude, one that can be peaceful, but also unexpectedly heavy. For those who have always been independent, this quiet can at first feel like freedom. But over time, it becomes something else, a reminder of what once was, of the voices that filled your kitchen, the laughter that echoed in the background of your life, the feeling of being part of a larger, active circle. Now there are moments when silence speaks louder than any words, yet within that silence, something else begins to take shape. Reflection deepens, memory becomes more vivid. You find yourself revisiting moments both joyful and painful, not out of longing, but as a way of keeping your connections alive. Stories once told to others are now whispered to yourself. You remember the warmth of a friend's hand, the cadence of a shared laugh, the comfort of being understood without explanation. These memories become sacred, not as a replacement for presence, but as proof that your life has been filled with meaningful bonds. And here lies the quiet power of this stage of life. Even as the outer world contracts, the inner world can expand. Emotional connection, especially with yourself, becomes not just important, but vital. In this smaller circle, depth replaces breadth. One meaningful conversation can outweigh a dozen casual ones. A bond with one trusted person can carry more weight than a crowded room. Presence becomes more precious, and being truly seen by yourself and by others feels like a gift. So, while your social world may not look like it once did, it is still yours to shape. And though the noise has quieted, your story is still unfolding, rich with emotion, memory, and the quiet beauty of a life deeply lived. 2. Small health issues become big problems. Another reality that quietly settles in after 80 is the way small health issues no longer stay small. What once would have been a passing inconvenience, a cold, a bruise, a stumble, can now stretch out for days, even weeks, and sometimes lead to complications that demand real attention. The body, once a quiet and dependable companion, starts to change its rhythm without warning. It doesn't bounce back the way it used to. What was once a simple ache might now require medication, a doctor's visit, or physical therapy. A missed meal or a poor night's sleep might throw your entire system off balance. And these changes aren't just physical. They touch something deeper. The truth is, there's an emotional weight that comes with this shift. Many people are surprised by the frustration, the irritation, even the quiet grief that surfaces when your body no longer responds the way it used to. You bend down to tie your shoes and find it takes longer to stand back up. You catch a cold and find yourself still coughing 2 weeks later. You trip slightly and suddenly you're worried about your hip, your balance, your independence. These moments aren't dramatic, but they add up. And more than anything, they begin to challenge your sense of trust in your own body. This feeling of being betrayed by the very vessel you've relied on your whole life is something few talk about, but many feel. You might have spent decades staying active, taking care of yourself, doing everything right, and still find that your body now has its own plans. It's disorienting. And if you've always prided yourself on being capable, self-reliant, and energetic, the adjustment can feel deeply personal. There's a subtle mourning that happens not just for what you've lost, but for what no longer comes effortlessly. But here's the turning point. Awareness is its own kind of power. When you start to listen to your body with compassion instead of frustration, something shifts. You stop expecting it to be what it was and start working with what it is. You learn how to pace yourself, how to prepare, how to adapt. You begin to notice the warning signs when you need more rest, more water, more stillness. And you stop ignoring them, not because you're weaker, but because you're wiser. This stage of life isn't about pretending nothing has changed. It's about respecting the changes and protecting the strength you still have. Recovery may take longer, yes, but it also becomes more intentional. You stop pushing through just to prove something and instead start healing with purpose. A good night's sleep, a short walk, a balanced meal, these things take on new meaning. They aren't just routines, they're investments in your well-being. And perhaps most importantly, you learn to treat yourself with the same kindness you've likely shown others for years. You allow yourself space to rest without guilt, to ask for help without shame, and to slow down without fear of falling behind. Because the truth is, this chapter isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters with care and presence. So yes, small health problems may now come with bigger consequences, but you are not powerless. You are adapting, adjusting, and showing up with a kind of resilience that's quieter, deeper, and more enduring than ever before. And in doing so, you're proving that strength isn't about how fast you heal. It's about how well you listen, how gently you treat yourself, and how bravely you carry on. 3. Loss of visibility in social spaces. One of the more unexpected and difficult realities of aging is the slow and quiet feeling of becoming invisible, not because you've changed who you are, but because the world around you has. After 80, many older adults begin to notice a shift, not just in how often they're seen, but in how deeply they're acknowledged. You might walk into a room and feel like the energy doesn't move around you the way it used to. You speak and people talk over you not out of cruelty, but because they assume you're done. At family gatherings, your stories get cut short. In public eyes, glance past you, conversations flow around you, and sometimes it feels as if your age arrives before you do. It's a quiet kind of invisibility. You haven't disappeared, but the recognition of your presence, your insight, your experience, your humor starts to fade from the everyday. And the strange part is, no one really talks about this. It's not loud or obvious, and it's rarely intentional, but it's deeply felt, even among people who love you, even in spaces where you once held strong influence. It can seem as if your voice has become background noise. And with that comes a kind of emotional ache, a mix of sadness, frustration, and even grief for the days when your presence was impossible to miss. What's hard about this loss of visibility is not just the change in attention. It's the feeling that your life's wisdom, all those decades of living, learning, and loving, are somehow being undervalued. In a society that often chases youth, fast answers, and flashy innovation, the slower, steadier truths of age are easily overlooked. But here's what needs to be said and said clearly: your voice still matters. In fact, it may matter more now than ever. You've lived through chapters that others haven't even begun. You've carried joys and losses, witnessed change, survived heartbreak, and found healing. Your stories carry weight. Your insights hold meaning. Your perspective brings balance to a world that too often moves too fast to remember what really matters. And even if fewer people stop to ask for your advice, that doesn't mean it's less valuable. Sometimes it just means they need to be reminded to slow down and listen. And this is why it's so important, not just for others, but for yourself, that you don't retreat into silence. Don't let the world's rush define your worth. Speak up even when the room feels loud. Share your stories even when you're not asked. Be the person who brings depth to shallow conversations, who adds grace to chaos, who reminds others that a life well lived doesn't fade, it deepens. You may not always feel seen in the same way you once did, but that doesn't mean your presence isn't powerful. The world may not always recognize it right away, but there are people, sometimes strangers, sometimes family, who will pause, listen, and be changed because of what you share. And if even one person walks away feeling more grounded, more hopeful, or more connected because of you, then you've done something deeply meaningful. Invisibility isn't a reflection of who you are. It's a symptom of a culture that forgets to honor age. But your presence, your wisdom, your quiet strength, they still shine. And sometimes the most powerful voice in the room is the one that speaks with calm conviction born from a lifetime of experience. So don't shrink, don't step back. Be seen not just by others, but by yourself. You've earned that space, and the world still needs what you have to offer. 4. Narrowing of daily life. As we journey deeper into life, after 80, another quiet shift often begins to unfold, the narrowing of daily life. It's not always sudden. In fact, it usually creeps in so gently that you barely notice it at first. Routines that once gave structure to your day-morning walks, trips to the store, chats with neighbors, visits to familiar places start to fade or change. Some of it is practical. Driving might feel less comfortable. A favorite cafe may have closed. The friend who used to stop by on Thursdays might no longer be able to. And slowly, the world you once moved through with ease begins to feel smaller. This narrowing isn't just about geography, it's emotional. There's a subtle grief that comes with realizing the things that once filled your life with color and rhythm are no longer part of your daily landscape. You may still be independent, still make your own choices, still find moments of joy. But the pace of life feels quieter now. Sometimes too quiet. Silence stretches longer. The phone rings less often. The calendar has fewer commitments. Even when you're not alone, there's a difference in how you relate to the spaces and people around you. It's as if life has gently folded in on itself. And here's the part many people don't talk about. Even those who have always been strong, fiercely self-reliant, and content with solitude can begin to feel the emotional weight of this change. It's not loneliness in the typical sense. It's more like a soft ache, a quiet missing of the world as it once was. The loss of spontaneity, the slow vanishing of places that once brought comfort. The absence of routines you didn't even know meant so much to you until they were gone. But in the midst of this narrowing, something powerful can also take root. Life may grow smaller in scope, but that doesn't mean it grows smaller in meaning. In fact, meaning often becomes more concentrated, more intentional. A short phone call with someone you love can carry more weight than a dinner party once did. A walk to the mailbox becomes an act of purpose. A familiar song on the radio might take you back decades, reminding you of who you've been and still are. What this chapter of life offers is a chance to slow down, not in defeat, but in awareness. To choose presence. To nurture the connections that still matter. To discover joy, not in quantity, but in quality. That neighbor who always waves. That caregiver who lingers a little longer to chat. That grandchild who texts every so often. These small touches are the threads that keep your world woven together even as it changes shape. And while you may miss what once was, that doesn't mean you've lost your ability to experience what still is. There is still room for growth, still room for laughter, still space to give, to share, to connect. It may take more intention now, but the result can be even more profound, because when your world becomes smaller, you begin to see it more clearly. The small things, the morning light, a shared smile, a kind word, become everything. So don't be discouraged by the narrowing of your days. Let it teach you how much can be held in a single moment. Life doesn't have to be wide to be deep. And the depth you bring to it even now is something no shrinking schedule can ever take away. 5. Unpredictability of the body. One of the most surprising and often frustrating realities of life after 80 is the unpredictability of your own body. Some mornings you may wake up feeling steady, clear, and even energized, like you could take on the day with ease. Other mornings, without warning, everything feels different. Your knees ache more than usual, your balance feels just slightly off, or your hands struggle to grip a cup that felt light as air yesterday. It's not always pain or illness, it's inconsistency. And that can be just as unsettling. This unpredictability doesn't follow a pattern. You might plan to run a quick errand or go for a walk, only to find yourself too tired to leave the house. A chore that once took 10 minutes now stretches into an hour. Even something as simple as bending down to tie your shoes can reveal stiffness or dizziness you didn't expect. The body you've lived in, depended on, and even taken pride in suddenly seems to be operating on its own terms. And not knowing how it will respond from day to day can make you pause, more often hesitate, before saying yes, or even second-guess your own abilities. What's hardest about this shift isn't always physical, it's emotional. There's a very human frustration that comes with feeling like you can't rely on the strength or energy that once came naturally. For those who've always been independent, active, and in control, this inconsistency can feel like betrayal. It's as if your own body, once your greatest ally, has become unpredictable, and that doubt can quietly chip away at your confidence. Suddenly walking out the door isn't just about the task ahead, it's about wondering if today is a good day or a difficult one. But within this new terrain lies a different kind of strength, one that doesn't come from muscle or endurance, but from adaptability, from awareness, from learning to listen gently and without judgment to what your body is asking for. Maybe today it needs rest, more water, a slower pace. Maybe tomorrow it will feel more capable again. Accepting this variation doesn't mean giving in or giving up. It means adjusting with wisdom. Flexibility, both physical and mental, becomes your greatest tool. Patience becomes another form of self-respect. Instead of pushing through, you pause. Instead of rushing recovery, you allow space to heal. And in doing so, you take back a kind of power Not the power of doing everything like you used to, but the power of choosing how to care for yourself with intention and grace. Even scheduling regular check-ins with your doctor becomes not just routine, but proactive self-advocacy. You begin to navigate your body not with frustration, but with curiosity and kindness. There's also strength in preparation. Keeping routines flexible, pacing your activities, and building in moments of rest isn't defeat, it's smart. It's resilient. You may not be able to predict exactly how your body will feel tomorrow, but you can prepare for it with a mindset rooted in care rather than resistance. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all. As the body becomes more unpredictable, your ability to respond calmly, compassionately, wisely becomes a new form of mastery. You've already lived through so much, learned how to adjust, how to endure, how to grow. This is just another stage of that growth. The body may be changing, but you are still fully present, still capable, still in command of how you meet each day. As we move through our 80s and beyond these changes, shrinking social circles, slower, healing feeling invisible, narrowing routines, and the unpredictability of our bodies may feel unsettling. But they are not signs of failure or weakness. They are simply part of the natural rhythm of aging. And in acknowledging them, rather than resisting them, we gain something powerful: clarity, peace, and resilience. And aging isn't about losing who you are. It's about becoming more deeply connected to your story, your truth, and the wisdom you've earned through decades of living, loving, and learning. You are not alone in these experiences. Many others are walking this same path, and your voice, your reflections, your courage in naming what's hard can help light the way for them too. This chapter of life holds its own kind of beauty, quiet, thoughtful, and full of meaning. The more we talk about it, the more we break the silence, and the more strength we build together. If this message spoke to you, please consider subscribing to Ageless Mind and Body. We create thoughtful content that supports your journey through later life, offering insight, encouragement, and a reminder that your story still matters. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's next. We're in this together.